Good morning, everyone. Welcome to those watching from home and to those here in the Quispamsis Town Council Hall. This is our first streamed meeting of the joint finance meeting between Quispamsis and Rothesay. If there are any topics that arise that will require a closed session, we will simply pause the regular session, go to our closed. When that is over, we will resume our regular meeting. As Quispamsis and Rothesay continue to evolve and grow during these challenging historical times, our towns have been fiscally responsible and prudent to ensure shared services are appropriately funded. Providing protective services through the Quispamsis Regional Police Force and fire suppression and rescue services through the Quispamsis Valley Fire Department gives our residents the comfort of living in one of the safest communities in Canada. Our library, which has the second highest foot traffic in the province, provides a variety of community clubs and activities for all ages. A community library such as the Quispamsis Public Library serves as a gathering place. It builds a community, and we are proud to have the Quispamsis Public Library in our community. With that, I will invite Quispamsis Regional Police Force Chief Gordo to come to the podium, and he and his team will present the 2023 budget. Welcome, Chief Gordo.
Here we are. Good morning, everyone. Your Worship. I have with me Mr. Kevin Darling, who is the provincial representative on the Joint Board of Police Commissioners, as well as Mrs. Sherry Medill, who is the numbers guru with the board, and also Deputy Jeff Giggy. So if I am stumped with a question, I will definitely refer to them. And I would invite Mr. Darling and Mrs. Medill to jump in anytime if you feel the need, if that's okay with you.
That's perfectly fine, thank you.
So I prepared a brief presentation to give you the big aspects of our budget without going into the weeds too much, and some of the reasons why some of the areas in our budget have increased. I am very aware that coming to you with a 9%, give or take, increase in our budget is a big ask. However, there are some reasons for that, and I want to explain that with some details. I started working on this budget back in the early spring of...
Chief, I'm just going to interrupt for a moment. I jumped ahead, and I'm just going to ask for an approval of the agenda, please. It's been moved by Councillor Shea and seconded by by Mayor Nancy Grant. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried unanimously. Sorry for the interruption, Chief.
Oh, no, not a problem. We started working on this budget back in the spring of 2022 with regular contacts with Mrs. Medill and other stakeholders on our board, in order to make sure that we were able to manage this year some of the big ticket items on our budget, such as the fleet, equipment, and supplies, so that those high expenses would not become an issue with our 2023 budget. And we were successful in doing that, in managing those items so that we wouldn't see those in the 2023 budget. And I understand that we need to be very fiscally minded, and I'm coming to you with that in mind. And we've gone through this budget. We've really trimmed everything possible, and I will explain in a minute why some of these other areas are going up. But we've come to you with a need budget related to where policing is going in general in Canada as well as locally, as opposed to coming to you with a wish list budget. So we could go to page 2, please. I was recently fortunate to attend the Canadian Chiefs conference in Quebec City, where we were provided with a lot of very interesting information as to where policing is going. What is the trend in policing? There are a number of items that we took from the conference that I want to make you aware of, because I think it is very pertinent to where your police force is going, where your police force needs to go here, as well as what's happening in the country, and how that reflects to the budget that I'm proposing to you. There was a study done, a Canadian study, in relation to a number of areas of policing services in rural and large municipalities around the country. And there were all sorts of questions asked about what is the public expecting. And in the survey, every once in a while, they would throw in the word competence. And at the end of the survey, the analysis showed that the one word competence is the number one ask of the general public of their police force, because it's an over-encompassing word. They want their police force to be competent. They want them to be able to respond. They want them to be able to provide proactive initiatives to prevent crime, but when crime does take place, to be able to solve the crime. We are in a need to increase training in a number of areas. They talked to us about where public order is going, protests. They are talking about the population, what we're seeing in the United States on a larger scale, but we are also seeing it in Canada. We've seen it in this community on 3 occasions in the past year. Some people in the public who used to choose social medias to hide behind, and now they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they are organized, they are funded, and we as police officers need to become better trained in taking proactive steps in engaging these protests before they begin. This is something that was done very well in Fredericton. This is something that was done very successfully in Quebec City and Toronto. We received a presentation on this, and I know that Mr. Darling was at a governance conference in Saskatchewan just recently, and again another presentation, and they were talking about the exact same thing, the need for the police to be better trained at negotiating with these groups and how to detect the other aspect of protests that are not necessarily part of the organization, those troublemakers. We also have needs to have some training when needed if we were to have to engage a protest while it's underway. So we have the equipment, as it turns out, we have a lot of equipment to deal with that sort of thing, but the training has elapsed over the years. So we need to develop training capacity in that respect. They also talked to us about social medias. Social medias, I don't need to expand on this, but it's become a huge issue in relations to youth in particular. It's become a huge issue with bullying. We're hearing of suicides. We're hearing, and this is not happening in the United States. It's happening in the small communities in Canada. We've heard of one recently in Saskatchewan. We're dealing with one now in the medias with someone on trial in Europe for somebody in our country, unfortunately passed away as a result of harassment. So we need our officers to better understand what that means. What is the world like through the eyes of our students in our schools when they are dealing in the social medias? That is where they live. So we need to provide training in that respect. There are a number of other training needs because of where policing is going. So that is why one of the reasons you're going to see an increase in our training budget. It's something that we have not done in some times, and the time has come now where we need to increase. One of the things that they talked about a lot at the Chiefs meeting, Chiefs Conference, the Canadian Chiefs Conference, was to defund the police. And we've seen this in our own backyard here. Just last year when there were a lot of articles in the paper dealing with traffic enforcement. And I know traffic enforcement is something that's very dear to a lot of people's heart here in this room. But, and the idea that this is not a core police function. And so we need to do better at communicating. Our police force needs to have a more significant footprint in the social medias, in the medias, on our websites. We simply need to do better to educate the public instead of only looking at enforcement. And one of the lines that stuck with me at the conference was, we need to go from the warrior to the guardian so that we can provide and do better at protecting and serving the public. We can go to the next page, please. Here is something similar to what you would have seen last year in relations to what our police force is able to deliver for service. And I must say, I suspect most of you know that I came from a different environment. And when I look at this, after 1 year of being on the job, serving with the officers of the KRPF, I'm really impressed to see the capacity to deliver an excellent police service. This is something you won't see just everywhere else in a smaller police force. We are able to deliver a service without having to depend on other agencies for the most part, unless we really were dealing with something out of the ordinary. And there's also a little information about the human resources. As you know, last year, this Joint Finance Committee approved the hiring of 4 new officers and 1 new IT specialist. I want to take a moment to thank you for that, for the officers, because what we're seeing as a result of that is a significant increase in visibility out there. The public feels safe when they see the police driving around. That makes a huge difference. We also have been able to increase our capacity with traffic enforcement in our own jurisdiction because of those new hires. So this is what we're seeing outside. We just had a case with a home invasion, as you know. The response and the solving of this case can be attributed to a number of things, but one of those things is the confidence that the officers have because they have the numbers, because they know they have backup, because they know they're not coming in with minimum numbers, just enough to respond. They are able to be proactive. So thank you for that. What you have approved cost a lot of money, but it really benefits you, the community, and the police force. But what it also does, it benefits the wellness internally. And that is just as important as any measure we would ever want to put out there as initiatives to prevent crime or be proactive. If we cannot have wellness within, we cannot deliver a good service. So now we're coming in, we're seeing people laughing, we're hearing people laughing, we're seeing people around the so-called water cooler having chit-chats. It really has showed a difference in the confidence, in the well-being, just in the general mood of the building. And I've asked that question to a number of platoon sergeants, and their eyes open and they smile and they say, you wouldn't believe the difference. So thank you for that. It made a huge difference. It's a big investment. Salary dollars is the single biggest piece on anyone's budget, but thank you. It made a big difference. We'll go to the next page, please. So there is a rise or an increase in $586,000, almost $587,000 for salaries. I must remind you, because it's possible some of you may have forgotten that, when those positions were approved, there was an ask to reduce the budget proposed by a certain percentage. And how my predecessor did this was by hiring any of those new positions not before half the year was gone. So on the first year, on the 2022, the salaries of all of those positions that you've approved were only for half the year. Well, that's no longer the case. Now we are in 2023. These people have been hired, by the way. We were very successful in hiring the 4 officers and the new IT specialist. So now we're seeing the full amount that is linked to that approval, which is a total increase of just about $587,000. You see an increase in training. I've spoken about this, and I could talk about training for a long time, because training is the single most important issue in relations to not only the ability to deliver certain aspects of policing services, but also the liability attached to not training the officers in certain aspects, especially when you know that there are certain types of issues we must do better. So for example, recently, an inquiry indicated that police needed to do better to deal with mental health distress type calls. We need to do better to de-escalate situations so that killing someone is not going to be the only option. We need to do better at bringing the situation down. That is extensive training. And it's not about only training the sergeant. It's about training every single officer who will be called upon to respond to one of those types of calls. So that is my number one priority in 2023, is to first find the best training available and train every single officer in our force to de-escalate. The answer is not more weapons on the belt. The answer is better ability to de-escalate the situation. So that is part of the reason why training is up. It had not been increased in some time, so I would suggest to you that now is the time. The IT services, this is something that is out of our control. It's a contractual obligation. It has to do with a number of things, but the largest one is the Axon company. That provides the service for body cameras, for cameras inside, for recordings, for cameras in the cars, for computers. It's the largest single contract that we deal with in relations to all this kind of data, the recording, the cloud. It's quite a complex contract. And we just had to buy extra body cams because of the new resources. So we're now looking at an extra $14,000 per year on that contract, on that 5-year contract. So every time you add something, it costs more money for sure. And anything to do, it's like boating. If you add that word to the invoice, the cost goes up. Insurance, another thing that's out of our control. Insurance is up across the board. Uniforms, the reason for this, more people. So I guess when I look at the last year's budget, it wasn't noted that we're going to have 4 extra people. We need more uniforms. We're already, with the uniforms, over budget this year by 70%. Uniforms are very expensive. So one of the things that I ask our officers is to be very vigilant in relations to how they care for their kit, but I also ask that they look very professional. If they look professional, they feel professional, and they deliver a professional service. So in that, though, we were definitely under budget in that area, especially now with the increase with resources. Investigational needs, we have some new investigations that have come in the forefront, and there's some special services, external services that are going to be needed. We've done this in the past. We know what the cost is, and that's what is being reflected here. The secondments, $29,000. Last year, we have 2 secondments. One is a secondment with the National Weapons Investigations. The full salary and benefits is paid for that secondment by the federal government, by the RCMP, in fact. We also have 1 secondment to the ICE unit. The ICE unit is the child pornography on the web. So we are very, very fortunate to have this position in our building, because the officer is an expert in a multitude of areas dealing with the internet. Her training is extensive, and she often assists our criminal investigation division, our detectives. But her salary is covered by the RCMP, but the benefits are not, and the overtime is not. Last year, the federal government had an initiative that, that would cover those types of expenses, but it came to an end. Therefore, we are basically losing $29,000 of her secondment. So that's why it is showing as an increase. The property maintenance, we are already over budget in property maintenance simply because our building is getting older. I know that there are a number of buildings. It was pointed out to me nicely by Mr. Jarvie yesterday, but the fact is that we need to increase our maintenance so that our building continues to be to look professional and meet the needs that we have. We just had an issue with, we haven't had hot water in the building now for 2.5 weeks, and it continues to be a problem while these things cost money. We're already over budget in that area. But there are some savings on the right side that you can see. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but there are a number of areas where we were able to manage. The fleet is the big one. We really are fortunate to have Sergeant Scott to manage our fleet, and we are in a very good position for some time now with our fleet, where we don't have to go buy 5, 6, 7 vehicles at $60,000 or $70,000 a piece. So we're doing well, and we suspect that next year we'll be able to keep that to a minimum as well. Property tax apparently down a little bit. And then I want to talk about, just briefly, about the NBIEU. This is a new provincial program that sees a number of areas in the province form large teams of drug investigators targeting low-level, local drug traffickers. The idea is that when you read the paper, either yourself or your children will recognize the names of these people being arrested. So we already are part of an integrated unit in St. John. We have one resource on that unit. They've been very successful. I'm sure you've seen the latest media reports on a large undercover operation that they conducted. We are now adding a second position. The province is providing us $115,000 permanent fenced funding. Fenced funding meaning it has to go to that one position. I cannot use that $115,000 for something else. It has to be for that drug position. So we just finished the process of identifying a candidate. Constable Jonathan McCackern is going to be going to that unit. So his salary is already in the budget. So the $115,000 is not quite enough to cover the full salary of a first-class constable, but we have hired someone to backfill that position, and that someone came out of the academy and will be far below that $115,000 for some years to come before she finally reaches the top. So, and we suspect that that funding will continue to increase as the years go by, but it is permanent funding. We can go to the next page, please. So in the overall aspect of the budget is that we are coming in at $8,171,000. The total increase is in the annual budget is $592, but it's important to look at a couple of things when we look at these numbers. The salary and the benefits increase is $586, or almost $587 of the $592. So that is the biggest piece of the increase, and that was money already approved last year. We also came in last year with a $100,000 surplus in our budget. So now that is coming off the bottom line of our sheet, which automatically increases our percentage when we look at the bottom line of what the total increase is going to be. But this 7.82% is strictly based on that without the $100,000. So we're being factual about what it really means. And then it highlights each of the two municipalities' portion of the budget. Can go to the last page, please. I wanted to highlight the fact, this is the very same slide that we had last year, but I want to continue to make sure that you do not forget that we are coming to you for an expansion of the building. It's not a big expansion, but it is a very much needed expansion. We have done a lot of cleaning this year. The whole office actually participated, and this was in the spring. things look great, and we're almost right back to where we started. We're looking at buying new sea cans, we're looking at all kinds of options, and we're simply out of space. It's that simple. And it's causing us all kinds of different issues. We have a vehicle, that vehicle that's in that garage actually barely fits, like really, really, most people would not be able to park in that garage without some kind of scratching on that vehicle. So I want to make sure that you remember this. We are coming. I just had I think the original estimate for the expansion was $900,000 a couple of years ago. I just asked Mr. Bob McLaughlin from our board to obtain a new estimate for the exact same plans. We're now at 1.6 million, and it's just going to continue. So we're hoping to be able to start some building of the expansion in late 2023 or early 2024, depending on what we're able to do with the rules around borrowing and what we have ongoing now. We can go to the last page. So that's the same thing here. We can continue. So that's just the last comment on the another the second largest piece in our budget is work to be done on the parking lot. So if some of you have come to our office during working hours, you will see that our parking lot is just no longer able to meet our needs. We are parking police cars in the garage. People, workers are coming in and they're out of space. So we've identified some work that can be done to expand our ability to simply park, but that is also going to help with the eventual expansion, because obviously where the expansion is going, it's going to be part of the parking lot. So, but whether the expansion goes forward now or in 3 years from now, the parking is needed right now. So we are looking to begin doing some work on that very soon, but the bulk of the work being done in 2023, and that's the reason why we've increased the amount from 30 to 100, a $70,000 increase. We had an estimate done where Mr. McLaughlin's been working with the town of Quispamsis to make sure that everything was in order to do what we're asking them to do, what we want to do, and we are confident that we will come under budget after having consulted with 3 different contractors. So that's a big piece of the budget for sure, but it's also very much needed. We're in trouble when it comes to parking. Anything to add? Good job.
Thank you very much, Chief. That was a very thorough overview of your upcoming budget for 2023, and certainly the message is clear. We are growing, we are evolving, and we are making changes in our towns and with our police force to make sure that we do have the proper training and the coverage that we need in order to continue making our residents feel safe within our communities. And I will open it now to our for discussion here with our Joint Finance Committee, members from Rothesay and also from Quispamsis. So I will go as my lights are flashing here in queue. So anyone here that's on the panel that would like to ask a question, just press your button. And as I said, I will hit the next in queue button and ask you to speak. First, we have Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. I enjoyed listening to everything you had to say. I've a couple of questions. First, where are we on the current budget? Are we going to be on budget at the end of the year?
We're going to come out on budget.
You're going to be on budget? Okay. And my second question has to do with the mental health visits and the training. I know that it's become quite a conversation on mental health and training. So I'd like to understand the role of the Department of Health, or the Department of Mental Health, and the police officers. So is there ability for training to happen together? Can they provide you with the training to answer a mental health call? And would the government maybe provide for that training?
So there are a number of aspects to take in consideration when we talk about going to a so-called wellness check that may be based on some mental distress of some sort. Uh, the idea that someone with training in those areas from social services or health, some kind of health worker, could respond to those types of calls themselves. If that had happened in Edmundston, that person would be dead. So that's my opinion. I have no doubt about that. But I think the solution, other than just the training, is to have a combined effort, and we're doing that right now. We have a mental health worker hired by Horizon who is working out of our office every so often, and that the frequency of her availability will increase as they hire more people. But she will eventually, our goal is that she will be permanent in our office. So if we have a call tonight on a wellness check and she is working, our officers would go there first, take care of the situation, make sure that there are no risks, and then this expert would follow suit and perhaps stay there with one officer and deal with the situation that is no longer a police matter, it has become a health matter. So the solution to me is to have that combined effort, as long as we are very strategic in how to manage the risk. The training, there is no one simple training to do better with dealing with mental health, because there's all kinds of different issues dealing with someone who is facing distress. You have a situation like we've seen in Miramichi and Edmundston, where things happen so rapidly, so quickly, weapons are involved. Simply knowing and identifying mental distress is not enough. You need that extra training in de-escalating that situation, in gaining control of that individual without having a contact with the individual, a physical contact. And there's a number of other areas as well. That is not my specialty, but I know that there are at least 3 or 4 different types of intensive training our officers need to do better at dealing with any one situation when mental distress is involved. I haven't heard of anything from the government that, not to say that there isn't, and we're in contact constantly with policing services, so if something does come up, we will. But my focus right now is de-escalation. I find that if we need to prioritize the type of training, that's where we need to go, and because it also can work with people who are not necessarily victim of mental distress. They are just violent individuals that we need to de-escalate the situation, so we don't need to go to the extreme measures.
Thank you, Chief.
Maybe just, I'll add something here, so that everybody's aware of what the demand on resources are. Sorry. Is one of the things that I didn't realize is when the officers answer this call, and they have to take somebody to the hospital, we tie up how many resources? 2 at the hospital for?
Undetermined time.
Yeah, so after 5 o'clock, we have 2 officers off the street at the hospital attending to this individual. Sorry, I just wanted to add that because I think it's important.
Yes. When we do have to go to the hospital, it's a major problem, for sure, yeah.
Thank you. Next, we have Mayor Nancy Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chief, just a question about, I think you've already alluded to this. So if we don't take into account the deficit, we have 2 budgets 2 years in a row, an 8% increase and then a 9% increase. So 17% increase over 2 years. And clearly, I think everyone around the table knows that this cannot be sustained year upon year. And I understand clearly that the costs are related, almost all related to the new officers, which we approved for you, and a new civilian employee. So I think correct me if I'm wrong, please, I think we now have 45.5 uniformed officers and 8 civilian employees.
That's correct.
That's correct. So I guess, and certainly, we have all agreed that those people are needed, but I guess my question is there any hope for stabilization of this staffing situation? These costs, of course, are cumulative year after year, and I'm just wondering if we have reached a point in our staffing where this may be stable for, I don't know how long.
I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'll probably have to pay for this when we leave here, but while I'm here, this is what we have. And there is no talk, no forecast of any new hires in relations to the police service we deliver.
Encouraging to hear.
Thank you, Mayor Grant.
The last time we hired was in 2014, so it's been a while. These officers are the first ones since 2014.
And we do have a contract.
Yes.
Next, we have the Chair of the Finance Committee here, Councillor Kirk Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. And I fully understand the increase. And I think one thing to note that is in the details, but it's not in this presentation for those listening, is the actual salary increase was 1.75. So it's significantly below, and because we've added the new officers. My question is basically on the new street crime position. I think that's fabulous. I think it's much, much needed in many communities. The $115,000, so it's two questions. The $115,000, I don't think that would cover all the benefits in that. So I know we're hiring somebody else on the side, so I'll ask both questions. So we're hiring somebody else on the side. Is the 115 going to cover even the benefits? And does the province give us an end date when this is going to happen? And I guess there's the third question. And I think by doing this, we've actually, and good for us, we've actually added an extra officer and an extra body in our community to help fight various crime specifically. But so it's kind of a threefold question. Yeah.
So there's one answer, which is this: if this initiative is not costing us any money, there's no additional cost to the budget. So the new hire, that salary and benefit will come below the 115 for some time to come. Eventually, it will catch up, but this funding is supposed to increase. Now, I can't, obviously, because it's government, I can't guarantee that. And if the Liberal government comes in tomorrow, we could have a different, it could increase the funding, but the funding has been promised to the chiefs of police by the new public safety minister in this kind of forum, face to face, because we were not going to sign up to this unless they guaranteed the funding, not for 1 or 2 or 3 years, but forever.
Because this committee makes recommendations to their councils.
Thank you very much. I do not see any lights flashing. Are there any other questions for Chief Gordo? Councillor Shea from Rothesay.
Thank you. Chief, with respect to the construction of the building and the enhanced parking that you require, does the budget include acquisition of land? Like, I was up there the other day, and I don't know how you're gonna improve your parking without more land, and I don't know how you expand the building without going into the parking lot. So could you maybe just comment on that for me?
We already own the land. We're a big landowner. No, we already own the space that we need and then some. So we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shea. Are there any other questions for Chief Gordo on the 2023 budget? Seeing there are none, I will ask our committee what their pleasure is. If you would like to make a motion to bring this back to your councils, if you're going to accept it, ask for change. What is your pleasure? If somebody would like to make a motion? Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Worship. I would like to move that the Kennebec Regional Police budget for 2023 be sent to the prospective councils for approval for the 2023 budget as presented.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Miller to take the budget back to our respective towns. Do we need a seconder on that? We do, don't we? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Matt Alexander of Rothesay. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your support team that are here. Oh, and we will vote on that. All those in favor, please vote now. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your time.
Next, we have the Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department, Fire Suppression and Rescue Services for the towns of Quispamsis and Rothesay. Welcome, Chief Boyle, and I will give you the floor to present your 2023 budget.
Great, thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Mike Boyle. I'm the new fire chief of the Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department, so it's my first budget presentation. With me today is Deputy Chief Sean White and Ron Kachik, who is our finance administrator. So when I was preparing the budget, when I talked to Ron, as it's my first one, I said to him, when I prepare this budget, I want it to be a few things. I want it to be realistic, I want it to be relevant, I want it to be reasonable. And what I mean by that is coming in as a first-time chief is to ask for a realistic budget for 2023, have a relevant budget that actually meets the needs of the fire department moving forward, and have it be a reasonable request when we do the budget presentation. So if we'll just move to the next slide. Just to give a very brief overview on the fire department, we respond to about 1,000 emergency calls per year. Those include fires, technical rescues, including water, ice, off-road rescue, medical calls, fire alarms, and different types of service calls. We have 41 firefighters on staff. That includes 32 full-time firefighters, 8 holiday relief firefighters, our new fire prevention officer. We have a chief and deputy, 2 division chiefs, executive assistant, and a finance administrator. So I'll go to the next slide, please. So there were several considerations that went into the preparation of this budget for 2023. The first one is that we have a brand new management team. Both Sean and I started in March of this year, and we had 2 new division chiefs who started in May. So it's an exciting opportunity for us, and we're certainly learning along the way. We signed a new collective agreement with the union in the spring of this year. We've also had our new fire prevention officer position, and he started in May of this year as well. We are also involved in an accreditation process with the Commission on Fire Accreditation International. We are the only fire department east of Ontario that is enrolled in this process. If we'll go to the next, please. One of the focuses for Sean and I when we started in our positions was really developing the mutual aid relationships that we had with our neighboring fire departments. And as you can see pictured there, it's actually a training session with our ladder truck and the ladder truck from Hampton. Chief Ireland and Deputy McCoy both retired in the spring of this year, so obviously the deputy and I moved up, and we do have 1 firefighter retirement expected in 2023. The Station 2 renovation began in May of this year, and we're into the phase 1 of that project, and I will ask Deputy White to come up and speak about that at the end of the presentation. And Chief Gordo alluded to the fact that we've entered into a new agreement with the police department for shared IT and shared human resources services. So those are all the considerations that went into the development of the budget for 2023. So in total, we're looking at a budget of $6.1 million for next year. That results in a 3.38% increase. The department has a history of being good money managers. We have typically been on or under budget for several years in a row. So what we have this year is we are taking into account the 2021 surplus. So when you take into account that surplus, what we're actually asking for is a 2.5% increase contributions from the towns. So I did prepare notes, and I'm not going to go through every single line of the budget, but I have highlighted line items that either have a significant dollar increase or may have a significant percentage increase. And I will go through some of these quickly. Line 10 is that's convention dues and training, and that is for chief officers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the pandemic as I go through this, because Our training and our opportunities for training have really been impacted by COVID, sort of starting in 2020 and the last couple of years. So what Chief Ireland did is he actually reduced the convention budget for 2021 and 2022. Now that things are starting to open up a little bit again, we have new opportunities, especially the fact that we have 4 brand new chief officers in new positions. We each have our own professional development plan. So we have educational requirements, attendance at conferences. We each maintain a professional designation. All of that is included in that line. The professional services line, this now includes the human resources portion of the police department for sharing data HR position. I've also included in this a portion as an honorarium for our fire department chaplain. Our chaplain has been with us for about 7 years now and probably puts in about 2 hours weekly working with the fire department members. That's spiritual support, mental health support, and is also our point of contact for victims of house fires and other accidents, that sort of thing. So when we respond to a fire, Bruce can end up putting in sometimes 12 to 20 hours over the course of 4 or 5 days after the fire has actually happened. It's something that he spoke with Chief Ireland about before, something that was never acted on before. I had mentioned accreditation. I won't go into great detail on it, but I will say there are 3 phases to the accreditation process. Right now, we are a registered agency, so that means we have access to documents. There was a small fee that we had to pay as we entered into the process. Next year, we're moving to the next step. So the next step is an applicant agency, and it's the second of 3 steps. So with that, there is a fee that goes along with that. It's $5,000 US. And once we pay that fee, we gain access to an online SharePoint site, and we actually get assigned a mentor from the commission that will help us directly with the accreditation process. The computer line, this is hardware, software, IT. This also includes the increase with the IT position and the shared service with the police. Also includes a new computer for the fire prevention officer. And this was also increased slightly for the Station 2 renovation. And all the existing computer equipment is staying at Station 2. We just wanted to make sure we had funds available just for any unknowns, power bars, modems, that sort of thing. When we talk about salaries for the firefighting force, we did have a contracted increase of 2.25%. That was the increase going into 2023. But because we had some move-ups inside, 2 members right now are at a 3rd-class rate. So into 2023, for about half the year, they'll be at a 3rd-class rate, moving into a 2nd-class rate, and that is quite a bit under a 1st-class rate. So that percentage is actually 2.1% when we take that into consideration. I did increase slightly the overtime budget, and this is to do with our mutual aid partnerships. We've been working quite a bit with our area fire departments, and we've been doing some training with them, including the ladder work, boat rescue, that sort of thing. When I got speaking to other fire departments, and especially the volunteer fire departments, is they identified a gap Monday to Friday during business hours in having enough firefighters available to fight a fire. So we have offered to be available for them to actually support them if needed, if they have a fire during those business hours. We would send 4 firefighters and a chief officer and be able to help them out during that time. The expectation is this may be 5 times a year, maybe 10 times at the very high end, but the return on this is far greater than the investment, because if we're gonna send firefighters to them when they need them, they're gonna send them to us as well. So when we start talking about some of the bigger buildings that we have out here in the valley, we now have access to additional firefighters. We've also talked about equipment, as in off-road equipment, rescue boats, another ladder truck. So it's a small investment with a very great return. As part of the new collective agreement, the retirement allowance has been changed. So this means that members no longer get their full vacation retirement for the year that they actually retire. Employee wellness has been increased just based on our experience year to date and 2021. So this includes wellness programs, such as our mental health program, monthly screenings, and programs such as that. Holiday relief wages have been increased slightly to reflect the contracted changes, and also, as I had mentioned, to reflect that small investment in supporting our neighbors. And we'll go to the next, please. Firefighter training has a significant increase, and it's for a couple of reasons. And I had mentioned about the pandemic is into 2020 and through the last couple of years, we have not been able to do the training that we typically would have been. Obviously, with the stop and start of the pandemic, some of it was from directives from the Office of the Fire Marshal, is we haven't been training as we normally would. We haven't done live fire training since the fall of 2019. So what we're finding now is that we're in a position of trying to catch up, especially on the bigger group training. So this would be like the live fire training, off-road training, ice rescue training, anything that required groups of people training together, we haven't been able to do. This also includes that workshops and courses and conferences hadn't been happening, so of course everything is opening up again. This also includes my intention to run a boot camp or a recruit class for 2023. We do have an expected retirement. So following some best practices in hiring that I learned about at a conference I attended this year, that's my intention to run a 4-week boot camp to make sure we get the best candidate. Fire prevention and public education have both been increased to reflect the expectations and the duties of the new fire prevention officer. Station 1 and Station 2 operating costs. We have a history with Station 1, so we know what the operating costs are for the station. I've also included in that repair for the front lawn of Station 1. And I don't know if you've noticed that the lawn is not in good shape directly in front of the station. This is, of course, the first building you see when you drive into the community off the highway. We had some insect damage in the spring that we didn't have the capacity to deal with. So I'm looking to have that front lawn repaired in the spring of next year. Station 2 operating costs are an estimate right now. With the station renovation, there's an addition to the back of the building, and there are some significant changes internally. So we don't have much experience with the building, especially with the changes, so that increase is based on our estimate. Fuel and firefighting supplies, these are both inflationary changes that obviously the price of fuel has impacted us, and the price of some firefighting supplies we purchase has gone up as well. Fire cause has been increased, although it's a small dollar amount. We have 2 newly certified fire investigators, so we've increased this amount to be able to support them in their roles as fire investigators. We have increased the new equipment budget slightly, and new equipment and something we're looking at for next year is upgrading some gas-powered equipment to battery-operated, such as positive pressure fans, some saws. There are some small items that we're looking at to increase our ability to fight fires in some of the bigger apartment buildings, and that's where the increase is there. Our miscellaneous budget, again, small increase, but this is getting ready for our 100th anniversary in 2024. So just so we have funds available there to be able to celebrate that properly. And we'll go to the next one, please. Oh, sorry, I'll go back one. So moving into our capital budget for next year, and the capital budget is made up of 4 key components. I'm going to talk about the replacement of a pickup truck, talk about some bunker gear for new members, the Station 2 renovation, and most importantly is going to be the replacement of our air packs. So we'll go to the next, please. And I should mention that one thing that I did inherit from Chief Ireland was a 10-year capital plan. So everything that I'm presenting today is all part of his plan. So the first one is a replacement of Unit 51. So this is an emergency response vehicle for us. We have a technical rescue trailer and a command trailer, and this is the vehicle that tows both of those. This is mostly a replacement just due to the function of age of the truck. And next, please. I had mentioned that we have 3 new members that started this year with the expectation of a 4th for next year. So although we do have a small amount of spare bunker gear is custom fitted. So there's obviously different body types and things like that when we purchase gear, it lasts for 10 years. So it does last for a fair amount of time, but any gear that we purchase is custom fitted and made for the people that are going to be wearing it. Right now we do have some members wearing spare gear. It is safe, but it doesn't fit them perfectly because it hasn't been custom fitted. So that's included for the capital for next year as well. And I guess from my perspective, this is really the most important part of the presentation for me. And because when I think about what is the role of a fire chief, is realistically, as I need to predict bad outcomes and stop them from actually happening. And if I were to talk about what is a gap or what is a liability for the department right now, it is in our air packs. And when you think about what makes firefighters actually be able to do what they do, it's not necessarily the gear they wear or their helmets, it's the fact that they carry their breathing air on their back. And that is what defines us and makes us be able to enter a smoke-filled environment and actually fight the fire. So we'll go to the next, please. So if you were to look at the picture right now, on the left of that photo, we have three editions of air packs. The oldest ones are a 1997 edition. We have some that are a 2002 edition, and our newest ones are a 2007 edition. So our newest air packs are about 15 years old right now. And we'll go to the next, please. So when we talk about air packs, the National Fire Protection Association, the NFPA, that's the organization that develops the standards for apparatus, for bunker gear, and also for air packs. So they update the standards on that piece of equipment every 5 years. So we're about 2 cycles out of date right now for our newest air packs. In investigating this and looking into it, the NFPA is now recommending that any air packs that are manufactured before 2002 just simply be phased out of service and not be used anymore. So if we look at our current inventory of air packs, we have 12 of the oldest style, 5 of the 2002 edition, and 12 of the 2007 edition. Obviously, with any piece of equipment, the older it gets, there's more maintenance tied to it. Along with that, and especially for our older packs, is that we actually can't get replacement parts for them. So if one of our 1997 edition air packs breaks, there are times when we just can't replace it because we can't repair it and put it back into service because we can't actually get the parts for it. As I had mentioned, this is part of Chief Ireland's capital plan. Like this was his plan for 2023. And we'll go to the next, please. So over the last couple of years, you would have seen his presentation specific to dealing with some of the bigger buildings that we have in the community. So we had talked about equipment for firefighting. So that includes hose, high-rise packs, nozzles, that sort of thing. He had talked about the hiring of a fire prevention officer to really focus on fire prevention and public education within those buildings. We have talked about enhancing mutual aid relationships, trying to get additional firefighters to go with these buildings. So he had made that presentation over the last couple of years. But part of that, and something that I've recognized once I took over as chief, is there is a gap there, and it is in the air packs that we're actually using. And we'll go to the next, please. So when you talk about air packs, we like to talk about them and how much air they actually carry. So the air packs that we have use 30-minute cylinders. So that's what we call them. But when you say 30 minutes, you're realistically looking at about 20 minutes of usable air. And if you're really exerting yourself, you're about 15 minutes of usable air. So as the community has grown, and this doesn't just include 3- and 4-story apartment buildings, this includes the schools, Canadian Tire, Kent, Home Hardware, all of these buildings that they may not be large in height, but they're large in square footage. So when we start talking about having 20 minutes of air and our firefighters maintain a reserve, that for them to get into the size of these buildings, if you were to say it takes 5 minutes to enter with a hose line, leaving yourself at least 5 minutes or more to get back out again, we actually have a very small working time that we can actually fight a fire. So if you were to talk about a fire in a 3 or 4 story apartment building and there is smoke throughout the building, we are very limited in how much working time we actually have in there. My worry with it is that we're gonna start pushing the limits a little bit to try to do more, even though we don't actually have the air to get back out again, which obviously we're either gonna get someone hurt or killed, or we're gonna have a building that has more damage than it needed to be. The replacements that I'm looking at are a 45-minute cylinder. So if we're talking about 20 minutes of working time that we have now, that would take us up to about 35 minutes of working time. So that's looking at the cylinders that we have right now. And we'll go to the next one, please. So if we were to do this replacement, there is a minor upgrade that is needed for a station compressor, but it's within the few $100 range to actually upgrade that. I did look into the possibility of refurbishing the 2002 and the 2007 edition air packs that we have. It's not recommended by the manufacturer, and I believe not by WorkSafe as well. If we were to go the refurbishment route, that still means that I'm down a dozen air packs, and the last thing I want to do is come make an ask for capital for equipment that I know doesn't meet our needs, and now I'm causing problems for a fire chief 15 years down the road from now. Most of our mutual aid partners are using the new air packs. So we are well equipped when it comes to apparatus, equipment, gear, that sort of thing, but we're actually behind when we talk about air packs. So St. John, Hampton, Newidgewok have this newer style. Where it creates issues for us is that if we were to respond to Hampton and fight a fire with them, we have to take all of our own cylinders because ours aren't compatible with theirs. If we were to go ask St. John to come assist at a fire with us, they need to do the same thing. They need to bring in their own air cylinders, and now if you start matching people up, you're matching people up who have different capacities because they're carrying different amounts of air. One thing that I didn't include was a recovery cost, because I'm not confident I can actually get anything for the air packs we have. There may be a possibility, there might be a smaller department somewhere that would be interested in purchasing them. Realistically, we may end up donating them, but I didn't want to include anything because like I said, especially when you start talking about pieces of equipment that are 25 and 20 years old, I'm not confident in that I can actually sell those. I have listed in the capital plan the purchase of new face pieces to go along with that. There may be an opportunity that we design the new air packs to actually fit the air packs to fit the face pieces that we have right now. So there is a possibility there. And I know there's probably the question of, can you do half now and half later? We can't do that because when you talk about the air cylinders, like the 30-minute cylinder and the 45-minute cylinder, they physically have a different thread on them. So you couldn't take one of our cylinders and tie it into a new pack. If we do half and half, then again, we're into that scenario where we're fighting a fire and you have one person who's 20 minutes of working air, someone who's 35, well, of course, we're gonna default to the person who has the least amount of air. This is the big change for us. It's going from that 30 to 45. There's nothing beyond, there are 60-minute cylinders, but most fire departments don't do that. So that doesn't mean that in 10 or 15 years, there's gonna be a fire chief here saying 45 isn't enough, we need to go higher. This is it. We would just be looking at, then you'd have the possibility of refurbishment or just an easier replacement. Not quite the significant change that we're doing right now. So, like I said, we are a very well-equipped fire department. Chief Ireland, I believe, has done a great job in getting us equipment, resources, all of that stuff. I had talked about our mutual aid relationships, that if we have a fire in a big building right now, is I can get firefighters, I can get equipment, I can get a ladder truck, I can get water. What I cannot get is air packs. And that right now, I believe, is our biggest gap as a fire department. So I'm gonna finish up here. I'm gonna invite Deputy Chief White to come up and we'll just go to the next slide, please. just to give an update on the Station 2 renovation. So he's going to give an update on the construction, sort of on the renovations and construction. And I'm going to ask Ron to be here to at least speak to some of the new numbers, because we just had a meeting with FCC this week and got a good snapshot of where we're actually at with that. So if you don't mind, Sean.
Welcome, Deputy Chief White.
Thank you. And for those who I haven't before, my name is Sean White, and I am the new Deputy Fire Chief with Chief Boyle. So good morning. This is just going to be a quick overview of where we are with Station 2 now and the renovations that are ongoing. Our second floor renovations are approximately 48% complete. So that's the upper level. That began on June the 6th, and it expected to be completed on November the 16th. The new construction, which is the apparatus bay in the back of the building, is about 17% complete, with the expectation of having that fully complete on January 2023. And then once those things are done, the crew who is now living downstairs will be able to move up, and then the renovations on the main level will commence, and it is expected to be complete April 19th of 2023. So we are on track to have the building complete by the spring of next year. Like any renovation, there's some things that happen, unknowns. So there were some unexpected things that we did encounter as the project moved along, and we are working with FCC to make sure that we can pick up where we can with that. So, for example, some of the things that weren't looked at was windows and the doors. After they get in there and really looked at it, they need to be replaced. So again, we're working with them to find ways of kind of recovering the cost for that. At this time, I think I'm going to turn it to Ron, if you believe.
Okay, sure. Oh yeah, no, just maybe we'll just go to the next slide. Yeah, I think just if you don't mind, Ron, one thing when we had talked about with the construction company was the addition of a contingency fund, and we've based that on a percentage of the work that hasn't been awarded yet. So I believe that is around a 5% contingency of that work is where the 100,000 came from.
Not technically, that's what they wanted, and
Okay.
we kind of negotiated. And
Yeah.
what we all felt was still livable and reasonable, and we landed on $100,000.
Sure. And there is the amount of the 65,000. Can you just briefly talk about that?
Could you please
Yeah.
come up to the microphone? Thank you. Please give your name for the clerk.
Yeah, so my name is Ron Katchik, and again, I'm the finance administrator for the fire department. As Mike mentioned, we met with the construction manager on Monday of this week to get an update on current costs. So if we can back up one slide. This section here, I was trying to illustrate it as simply as possible, but on the left-hand column where you see 2022 original budget, that was the original budget at the beginning of the project, so $3.021 million. There's been some updates along the way. However, the most current, as of September now of this year, it has now come to about $3.836 million. So that $815,000 difference, now if we go to the next slide. In the lower section under facilities, you'll see a number of $815,458, which represents the difference between the original budget and the current budget. In May of this year, however, I wasn't part of the process, but additional capital was approved for $650,000. So what we have left is an additional capital amount that has yet to receive any approval of about $165,458. So that is sort of what's built into the capital budget this year in order to bring us up to the authorizations we need for the current capital costs. Okay.
All right, thank you. I guess I'm open to any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you very much, Chief Boyle. Certainly a thorough overview of the department budget changes coming up in 2023. One question that I would have is, what exactly does the accreditation mean for the department, and what does it mean for our towns?
So accreditation is really about quality improvement, and you would see things like the lab at the hospital is accredited. You'll see different organizations become accredited. And realistically, what it is third-party validation. It's someone else coming into your fire department and saying you meet a certain standard. So what it does for us is it gives us, it allows us to look at every single aspect of a fire department, right from how are we legally established to how well do we run our health and wellness programs. So it includes a strategic plan, which we already have through the fire board. It includes a community risk assessment and standards of cover. So what that means is we create a document that is an all-encompassing document about information about the community, that we can talk about the histories of the communities, when they were formed, the populations, what languages do we speak, what specific hazards do we face, what is our fire risk, what is our technical rescue risk, with all of those things, what is our plan to meet those risks, and then we do an internal self-assessment, and there are 252 individual criteria that we look at as a fire department. So for example, it may say something, are all firefighters evaluated for competence as they go through training? And we work through all of those things. So it is an ongoing continuous improvement project. So once you are accredited the first time, then you start over again. And you just keep working to improve on where you were before. The value for the fire department is if you don't have some sort of plan in place to try to improve yourself, then what happens is usually you try to improve the things that are sort of bright and shiny, and you miss some of the other things. This is all encompassing. It's going to make us a better fire department, a more efficient fire department. So for a community, when we start talking about investments in the fire department, you start getting better returns on it. If the people who live here were to say, I worry about a certain risk within the community that's been identified by us, that means we have a plan to address that risk. The other thing that it allows, and I'm fortunate enough to be a peer assessor, so that means that I volunteer for the commission. I travel to other fire departments to do the same thing for them that they would do for us. So we would have 4 chief officers from all over North America at the very end of the process come in and verify and validate our documents. Basically what they're doing is we say we're doing something, they're gonna make sure we're actually doing it. So it's just like any quality improvement project. It's structured, we have all the documentation, we're working through that right now. Like I said, we're ready to move into the second stage. The third stage is when we have the peer team here. And once you get accredited, you put a sticker on the apparatus and you celebrate because it's a huge achievement. As I'd mentioned, there's no Canadian fire department east of Ontario that is involved in this process right now. So I truly believe it is going to make us a better fire department. If we're a better fire department, then all the better for the community.
Thank you. Kind of a quality control and
Right.
reach for excellence
Yes.
all the time. Okay, I'm going to Deputy Mayor Matt Alexander of Rothesay.
Okay, thank you, Chief Boyle, for your presentation, and Deputy White also. I just, one thing that we never really, well, we think about these things, but not in the detail that you do, but when we start thinking about mid-rise and multi-level buildings, you did include the presentation from the 2021 to 2023, the purchases that are required for dealing with those types of fires, and you have identified another one, which is the air tanks. Do you see anything else that would be required for fighting those types of fires, or do you think that that's it?
No, and like I said, though the air packs aren't specific to mid-rise buildings, it's not a mid-rise problem. Not only that, like I said, there are other buildings as well, but we are already, like I had mentioned, is our hose, equipment, gear, everything else is we have, and everything's on plan. So everything that the Chief Ireland had set, everything is on plan. There's no gaps in equipment right now that we're gonna come back next year and say, hey, we've actually missed this. So there's no other equipment needs specific to mid-rise buildings or the larger buildings in the community that we need right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Alexander. I'm going now to Councillor Don Shea of Rothesay.
Thank you, Mike. Great presentation.
Thank you.
When you look at your capital expenses, such as your air packs and things of that sort, and what fire trucks and so on and so forth, do you seek out other fire departments in the province and see if they're purchasing the same type of thing and whether or not there's any advantage to?
I have not, and I have thought about that a lot. And I'm too new in the position to be able to say, yes, we can do that. I think there's an opportunity there. I just haven't been able to investigate it because like you said, if we look at bunker gear, if we're gonna buy 4 suits, we're better off to get in on a purchase of 400. I'm just not there yet. There's probably a possibility there. I just don't understand the challenges, dynamics of that yet. But certainly something I've already been thinking about and will look into moving forward.
Do the fire chiefs here in New Brunswick get together at any point in time, association-wise, or?
Yes, so we actually just had a meeting last night. So there's the New Brunswick Association of Fire Chiefs. So we meet annually. There are firefighter associations. So the associations meet about quarterly, and then there are the zone associations that are part of sort of those bigger groups. So we just had a meeting last night with our zone. So our zone would include 11 fire departments around us: Hampton, Widgewock, Simons, Musquash, all around there. So we do get together regularly. Those discussions have come up. Again, I just don't have enough information on it yet to say, yes, we can do that, or no, we can.
Thank you, Councillor Shea. I will now go to Deputy Mayor Scryer of Quispamsis.
And thank you, Your Worship. This question, I don't know the answer. The fire marshal.
Yeah.
Does any of your budgeting include the fire marshal? Is he or she completely provincial? And how do you find that whole process works with, we've seen a lot of building happening in Quispamsis and Rothesay this year, and we know it's going to continue over the next few years. So how do you see that whole relationship working?
So we work with the Office of the Fire Marshal in a few ways. So when a building is being developed and they're going through the plans review process, it goes through the process with the municipalities. When it goes for the fire protection plans review, that goes to the province. So the province has plans reviewers. They're the ones who approve the building. Once the construction starts, then we start to get involved and cooperate with our regional fire inspector. So, and with the building inspectors as well. So during the planning stage, we aren't involved. When construction starts, we begin to get involved, and that can include construction fire safety plans. Once the building is ready to be occupied, then we get involved in that as well, because then they're doing testing on the fire alarm systems, fire protection, sprinklers, that sort of thing. Once the building is occupied and then becomes inspected, we have a partnership with the Office of the Fire Marshal. So under the Provincial Act, we have appointed local assistants and fire inspectors. So in essence, we work for the Office of the Fire Marshal. So when we go do a fire inspection, we report back to the Office of the Fire Marshal, just like every other fire department does. So we'll do the inspections and report back to them. So we will work with the Fire Marshal's office. We just started really doing inspections in earnest in the last 3 to 5 years. So they've actually been giving us a lot of education, guidance, mentorship as we're going through with them. Because that means if they're not in the area and we have a complaint come in, say a fire alarm system isn't working in an apartment building, they'll call us. We'll go to the inspection, and then we do our own filing and we report back to them. And like we have to do annual reporting anyway. We also work with them for fire investigations. So again, our fire investigators are appointed by the province. They do the fire investigation. They report back to the fire marshal's office. And we've actually called on them for assistance twice, in the last several weeks for a couple of fires we had that we needed some assistance with.
Just to follow up to that, the reason I ask is I know I've heard some questions about the timing it's taking, because my understanding that there's one fire marshal for quite a large geographical area that includes Quispamsis and Rothesay.
Yeah.
And that developers are waiting long periods of time to have this, yes, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And so if you could just let me know what the geological territory is for the fire marshal, and do we have 1, 2, 3 to support us as we're going forward with new builds?
Sure. Yeah, I'd have to get that information later on. I don't have I don't know what his area is right now. I know there is our area investigator or inspector is retiring, so someone new is coming in. But all of the plans review is done, I believe, in Fredericton at their plans review office. Like we're very hands off on that part. So if there's a delay there, I can try to get information, but I can't really influence it a whole lot.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? If there are, just press your light, please. Seeing that there are none, what would you like to do? Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Chief and Deputy Chief. Good first go. So we all know you know your stuff because you're not new to our fire department either. Both of you were internal. So thank you very much. Our budget's not a very large increase, which is great. And I fully seen, I know none of the other members here are on the fire board, but we actually, those of us on the fire board, we actually got to look at the scuba, the cylinders and everything else. And when we talked about going to a high rise or going into the other buildings, that was a huge difference where you might just get to the top floor and you got to come back and you can't plug into the other person's vehicle or whatever to assist. But I really like Councillor Don Shea's comment about perhaps as a region we look at buying these in bulk in the future, because if we are now aligned with everybody else, that it would help. So with that said, and there was no other question, I would move that the committee submit the budget for the Quispamsis Valley Fire Department to the respective towns for budget approval, budget consideration for the 2023 budget.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Miller of Quispamsis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Scryer of Quispamsis. On the question, seeing there are none, those in favor, please show by raising your hand. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much,
Great,
Chief,
thank you.
Deputy Chief. Thank you very much for being here today. The library was asked to be here for 10:30. If you'd like to take a health break right now, we can resume at 10:30.
If somebody wasn't, I guess. It makes me feel a little better. No, that's, this is the first time I've gone through it, and every no big deal, like challenges and stuff. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning once again. We're going to resume our budget deliberations for the Joint Finance Committee meeting of Quispamsis and Rothesay. And right now I'd like to welcome Nora Emerson of the Kennebecasis Public Library. Welcome, Ms. Emerson.
Thank you. As mentioned, I'm Nora Emerson. I am the Acting Library Director at the Kennebecasis Public Library. Joining me today is Amy Watling, who is the Kennebecasis Public Library Board Treasurer. And together we're going to provide an overview of the library's services and share our proposed 2023 budget. So, just to remind you all of our mission, as developed by our board, it states that the library enriches the lives of the residents of the Kennebecasis Valley by fostering the pursuit of knowledge, creativity, community, and joy through the free and equitable access of ideas, information, and experiences. So, as you're likely aware, 2022 has been an exceptional year at the library. In January, the province went into level 3 lockdown and KPL had to deliver curbside service only. Patrons were not permitted into the building except for computer use. And then after 1 week at level 3, the library experienced a major flood on January 24th after a pipe in the sprinkler system burst, flooding both floors of the library. While the collections were undamaged, extensive repairs were needed to walls, ceilings, flooring, and shelving. The damage could have been exponentially worse. And libraries are more than simply the space they provide, but our closure was still a major hurdle to the community in having their needs met. Staff during this closure were diverted to other libraries in the region while the building was brought up to a workable standard, and they returned once we were able to begin to deliver curbside service at the end of May. We could still connect people with the books, information, printing, and programs that they needed. It would just happen outside instead of inside. Following extensive renovations, the library reopened to the public on August 23rd. And in the time since the flood, and particularly in the couple of weeks since the library's reopening, our patrons have articulated that the library's place in their lives and in their communities has been emphasized, particularly when it was temporarily at risk. So, with that timeline in mind, I'd like to share some statistics from our past year. Please keep the closure in mind, and remember that we resumed offering services beyond the circulation of books at the end of May. So we had 45,526 visits to the library in 2021, which is an 11% increase from 2020 and holds our place as one of the busiest libraries in the province. Until lockdowns came into effect in the last quarter of 2021, traffic showed a consistent month-over-month increase. Obviously, traffic in 2022 has been a little bit quieter. However, to demonstrate how quickly patrons have returned to the library, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that between August 23rd and 31st of this year, we had 2,100 visitors versus August, the entire month in 2021, when we had 4,300 visits in 21 days. Regarding our patrons, while the library was closed, we noticed a similar trend as had been seen in 2020 and 2021 with pandemic closures. There was an influx of user registrations as the community sought out our digital services. We had 1,018 registrations in 2021 and have 320 new patrons so far in 2022. So this brings KPL's total number of memberships up to 16,276. And just for reference, that places us at about a 52% level of membership among the populations in the valley, which is higher than the national average. So we're doing all right. Regarding borrowing, so the New Brunswick Public Library System holds over 2 million items, both digital and physical, including books, DVDs, and ebooks, as well as things like snowshoes, knitting needles, sports equipment, and toys. And of that 2 million, KPL is home to about 65,000 physical items. We process about 1,200 holds per month, where we bring in items from other libraries in the province and from across Canada at patrons' request. So when it comes to hour-by-hour circulation, KPL is the busiest library in the Fundy Library region, which stretches from Campobello to Sussex. At our peak hours, we see an average of 4,400 items checked out per hour. For the initial few months after our closure, patrons were routed to St. John libraries to find their books. Traffic at the east, west, and main branches showed about a 40% increase to their circulation as patrons from the valley came into town. As soon as we were able to offer curbside service, our circulation resumed. The amount of items checked out at KPL tripled between July and August as the building reopened. Regarding connectivity, we offer free internet access and printing services to the public, which has been deemed an essential service during the pandemic. During the library's closure, we extended the reach of our Wi-Fi to cover our outdoor areas so that patrons could still access the internet. And the necessity of this service is demonstrated by the 2,700 unique Wi-Fi users that we had in 2021 and the 79 computer uses per month we had in the same year. Since reopening, our Wi-Fi use has already rebounded to match 2021 levels. Turning now to programs, we were able to offer 335 programs to 4,200 participants in the first 8 months of 2022. They were delivered in a variety of formats, both virtually and in person. All of our summer children's programming was held outdoors on library property, and we also expanded our passive programs. Passive programs are activities that don't require direct staff supervision, to include Storywalks, which is a literacy initiative that places the pages of storybooks along local trails and through parks. We have already returned to normal indoor programming in our community partnerships since reopening. And this is just a sampler of some of the programs that we offer to the public, and there are many more that are not listed here. Notably, we continue to invest heavily in passive programs this year. This was a choice partially driven by our closure, as it allowed us to place programs out in the community where anyone can access them, whether or not they are a library user. All right, so this is a brief summary of some of the changes we have made this year, both to reach our patrons while the building was inaccessible and to improve the space during renovations. In terms of maintaining service, we set up a mailbox to offer passive programs and paperwork for our tax clinic. We extended our Wi-Fi, we offered virtual and outdoor programs, and outdoor library services and browsing. To develop our space, we improved our patio and lawn area to support outdoor programs, created more communal areas in the library, and we relocated our teen section. Relocating our teen section to the bottom floor of the library was actually our largest project during the closure, which has allowed us to create a dedicated space for teens in the library. Their previous space had been fairly small and located in a busy part of the library, so this change has been welcomed, and it's resulted in more teens visiting the library and spending more time there when they are here. So in regard to how our flood adaptations went, here's some feedback from our younger patrons. We had a number of letters written to us upon reopening. So, with all of that in mind, I'd like to hand it over to Amy, who will be presenting the outline of our budget proposal.
Just give her to introduce herself.
Welcome, and please give your name for the clerk to record, please.
Good morning. I'm Amy Watling, so I'm the treasurer at the library. So I'm going to go through the budget.
Sorry, what was your last name?
Oh, Watling.
Watling.
Yep. So I'm going to go through the proposed budget for 2023. So as you can see, I'm just going to go through kind of line by line, just highlight some of the things in there. So in terms of building maintenance, you'll see there's a 4% increase. That reflects the increase to our elevator contract, as well as allow for repainting of the exterior of the library this coming year, and as well as accounts for any waste management increases with our fuel surcharge. Communications, we only have a 1% increase, and that's just a result of a small increase in our software and licensing contracts. Ground maintenance, there's a 4% increase. We did have to renew our snow removal contract, which we did this fall, and that reflects the new pricing for the grounds maintenance, and also includes the summer programs outside. Insurance, we have a 5% increase. We still have yet to receive our updated quote from our insurance company, so we've incorporated a 5% increase over our previous contract. Miscellaneous expenses and office expenses, you'll actually see there's a decrease in both of those lines. This is a result of a lot of the things that we were outsourcing we've been able to do through our regional library and save those costs, so that's actually saved us a lot of money in different areas. And professional development, there's no change. Professional services, there is this increase of 22%, and that reflects the increasing bookkeeping hours as well as in our auditing costs for next year. Programming, no change. Public relations, there is a decrease, again, a result of being able to utilize internal services within the regional library system. And small equipment, there's again no change. And utilities, so that is an 18% decrease. So this accounts also for a 2% increase for utility rates over time, but we've noticed that since some of the repairs were done in the library to the insulating above the main entrance, that the actual utility rate is much lower, and they're also going to do the other insulating of the other portion of the library, so that will actually reduce, I think, even further. So that's why that's been decreased, because we've noticed our electricity bill has gone down significantly since that work's been done. In wages, there's an 18% increase. So this incorporates also into account the minimum wage increase that's coming for the students, as well as a small increase to our facility manager Phil's salary, and also allows us to reimburse mileage for some of our summer students who administer programs in the community, which we've gotten really great feedback from them about, and also allows us to extend summer students' payment 2 more weeks to give them a 10-week rotation. So if in total, as you'll see at the bottom, our total operating costs for 2023 will be $231,008. And when you take into account our last year's surplus as well as our expected revenue, it's $218,202 between the two towns. So overall, that's a 2% increase from last year's budget from 2022. So I can take any questions.
Thank you very much. I will open the floor now for discussion and questions. Deputy Mayor Schreier from Quispamsis, please.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure to go into the library. I was so excited to go there. I think I was there the second day you were open again. I got to get in there, and it's just buzzing in there, so great job. I'm wondering about your summer students. You said that that one line item, I can't find it right now, well, under wages, included your summer students. And of course, you probably get money from the provincial government for the summer students. But what are you planning on paying the summer students this year? And the second part of my question is, did you have difficulty recruiting the summer students and retaining them at the base salary that they were offered last year?
So the wages for the summer students represents us providing a pay raise from the minimum wage provided by Canada Summer Jobs to $14.25, which has actually enabled us to have no issues hiring students and to attract quality candidates. Since Canada Summer Jobs only covers minimum wage for our job terms for our students, if we only pay minimum wage, we do have some difficulty attracting and retaining candidates. But since we put that pay raise in place this summer, we had no issues and have actually retained some of those summer students through to a academic year term.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or discussion? Mayor Grant of Rothesay, please.
Hi, thank you for being here and your presentation. I may have missed this, but the revenue that you've listed as $4,500 for both years, what's that?
That's a general estimate, and that comes from, we run a book sale inside the library, and we also have room rentals. So we have 2 public programming rooms.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or discussion for the Quispamsis Regional Public Library?
I did have one.
There's one more question from Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you. Just the insurance company. Obviously, we've had a history now of a flood and the cost to fix the library. Has there been any discussions with the insurance company as your premiums going forward, or have they given you any projections for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? Any discussions on that?
Yeah, those discussions are ongoing. They have not yet provided any estimate.
Thank you once again, and certainly the traffic that we've seen going in and out of the library is evidence that Quispamsis and Rothesay recognize the value that we commit to our library and what it provides to our entire community, to our newcomers, the programs that assist our community members, and certainly it makes us and continues to make us a vibrant community, and you're a part of that. So thank you very much for your presentation. And now we will have a motion on the presentation. I'm looking for a motion to bring this back to the respective councils.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Deputy Mayor Matt Alexander of Rothesay and seconded by Deputy Mayor Mary Scryer of Quispamsis. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, on the vote, I'm sorry. On the vote, could we have the vote, please, on the question? Unanimously, everyone in favor. Thank you.
Your worship.
Yes.
I was wondering, before we go to adjournment, if we do a quick closed session before we go to adjournment, if that be appropriate?
We have one more item.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep. And then we can go to a closed session. Item number 5, we'd like to look at scheduling of the Joint Finance Committee meetings for future years as the 4th Thursday of September. That way we're giving a year in advance, and it provides us with that continuity moving forward. Is there any objection to that? Seeing that there are none, I don't think we need a motion on that. We'll just send that out. Okay. And at this time, I'd like a motion to close the regular session, and then we will move to a closed session at the request of Councillor Miller. It has been moved by Councillor Emil Olson of Quispamsis and seconded by Councillor Miller of Quispamsis on the question. All those in favor, please show by raising your hands. Motion carried unanimously. So now we'll move for a motion to go to closed session. Yeah, she's, yeah, finance.